I left and I actually went to live in the south of France for a little while. So it's not so much how long you live for, but it's the quality of life that you live. And they're not going to tell you that because they're trying to sell you a 6-week transformation package. I always knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I always used to overthink way too much. I was trying to build a business. I was probably working about 90 hours a week. House, cars, successful, he's in shape. He's got his life to go, right? He can't have any problems. So in the past, I wasn't a big drinker, okay? Yeah. And then I knew that my alcohol intake was starting to go up and it was becoming a problem. I had all this stuff that I thought would make me happy, and it actually made me worse. I have all this stuff, now I don't have the answers. That's when I knew I needed to get help. And I have a completely different perspective on life because I know who I really am rather than who I was.
Hey, welcome to Moledina Talks, the show where we gain insight into the journeys of individuals in different industries and discover what it is that drives them to their success.
My name is Ali and I'll be co-hosting this episode with my sister Zahra. Today we have a guest that has followed a different kind of journey to our previous guests, so I can't wait for you all to hear about it.
But before we start, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Enjoy.
Welcome everybody to episode 3 of Moledina Talks. Today we have another interesting guest with us. Today we have Daniel Phipps. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you guys?
Good,
doing good, thank you.
Good.
So, would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Daniel. I'm now 33 years old. I'm a personal trainer, and I don't like to use the word lifestyle coach, but certainly mentor people to becoming the better version of themselves, which is kind of my philosophy, mentally and physically. My journey, I would say, started when I was about 14, 15 years old. So I was always good at sports, but when I was younger, I was a little bit overweight. And my rugby coach in his private time, we discovered, was a personal trainer. So my mum approached him, or I approached him also, and said, you know, I need to get to the next level up on the rugby team. So decided to get some personal training in my spare time outside of school. And I lost a lot of weight and gained confidence, felt good about myself. And that's when I decided, when I was about 15 years old, that I wanted to become a personal trainer. And ever since then, there's never been a plan B. It's always been helping people feel the way I did when I was 15, when I was struggling and, you know, not great self-esteem, confidence, all that kind of stuff that most people go through when they start going to the gym. And that's been the journey ever since, you know, going to school, college, uni, sports and exercise science, working out myself, doing different sports and just helping others, really. That's been my passion ever since. So that's like 18 years now. It's a long time.
Wow.
So that's it. And there's never been anything else other than that. So, yeah.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. So I know you've also, you're kind of an entrepreneur yourself. So can you talk us a bit about how you went about setting up your businesses and all the lessons you've learned from that?
Sure. So I first started working out at gyms and being a fitness instructor, even though I was qualified as a trainer, because you had to take steps when you're younger. And so I did that for a little while in North Oxford. And then I set up my own personal training company within the gym. And this was just before the 2009 crash. I was getting really busy, doing really well, putting a lot of hours in. The main thing I'd advise to trainers is you got to be willing to put the hours in. It's not glamorous like people think it is to begin with. A lot of people think, oh, personal training, you get to train all the time, it's glamorous. It really isn't. You've got to be willing to get really early in the beginning. Now I can be more flexible, so a good client base. But you got to be willing to get up at like 5 and come home at like 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes. That was going on for quite a while. And once you establish a good client base, then you can calm it down. But anyway, so I had a really good client base in North Oxford, and then Virgin Active took over. And then what happened was we were getting a large amount of money taken off us. So then I decided to go as a limited company. So to stand on my own 2 feet, so to speak. And what I did was I left and I actually went to live in the south of France for a little while when I was about 22, 23 years old. To set up a fitness company, a friend. Unfortunately, the French are really quite slim and they weren't really interested in us English guys. So I was there for a little while. it's a good life experience, came back, and then moved home for a little bit to save some money, and just put a lot of hours in, you know, and just trying to help people. And I think the most important thing is to show that you care about the person. It's not a lot of, I hate to say this, but a lot of trainers get caught up in their own self-image and their own, what they want rather than what the client wants, because they're paying you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I take myself out of the equation. I'm irrelevant at this point. I'm just listening to you. What do you want? What do you want to feel good about? And you get invested in the person. That's super important. And my job is just to, I believe, to facilitate that. So a lot of people think, you know, big strong guy, all I do is weight train, but that's not the case. Some people I teach martial arts, some people I teach a little bit yoga, some clients just do stretching or go out for a long walk in nature. I'm entirely in, so basically whatever the client wants, I provide, as long as it's safe and sustainable and I'm comfortable doing it, I will do it. And that's the secret, to be honest, because a lot of people they're too rigid. They're too focused on themselves, and as a consequence, the client doesn't get what they want. They're not listening to the client. The key is to be present with them, I believe.
Yeah, very person-centered approach.
Yeah.
I think
so. Just making people happy, building good rapport, showing some form of result, and being honest with the client. A lot of people they sell a dream or they sell false promises. Like I've had people in the past say, "I need to lose 3 stone in 2 months." I'm like, well, you could, but it's probably not safe and realistic. Let's try and lose 2 or 3 pounds a week and actually lose 2 or 3 pounds a week and be honest. And people don't like to hear that to begin with, but they respect the honesty, you know? So as a consequence, I've had a really good high retention rate. My longest client is for over 14 years now I've been training him for.
wow.
He now lives in Israel. You won't mind me saying this, and we still train online even to this day. But I train him in Oxford in England for like over 10 years, but we still train on a regular basis due to that honesty. And I like to try my best to keep my integrity, you know, and be honest with people and transparent. Hopefully people can see that. So
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
you mentioned quite a brave thing that you touched on there, how you went to the south of France when you're 23. What kind of inspired that move over there, because that's quite a big jump for someone that's quite young at that age?
Yeah. So I was working in gyms and I was an independent company at that point, and I was just kind of a bit fed up with the routine of life, and I just wanted to try something new and get a bit more uncomfortable. So I just, with a friend of mine at the time, we just decided that we'd go down to South France for experience and then see if we can set up like a personal training fitness company. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but a lot of the life lessons were learned during that process. And it was just being in the routine, kind of being like Groundhog Day, like with COVID, everything's the same day in, day out, and you get bored of monotony of it. And I just needed a new change and a challenge, and to kind of expand my horizons rather than my little box of this world that I live in. Go out, and I learned a lot from that. So that's pretty much why.
Was there anything different you would do now if you had to go back and take that adventure again?
That's a good question. I'm a big believer in not having regrets. I did the right decision, what I believed at the time, and then I learned from it in this point in time. So I try not to carry regret around with me, you know. I learn from that, I reflect on it, and then make sure I don't make the same mistakes, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of thinking about it.
I try not to live in the past too much.
Yeah. How did you find it going into, like, I think, did you go in a partnership with someone else? Or did you go solo?
Yeah, it was kind of, we were helping each other. It wasn't like official contract partnership. Okay. We were both personal trainers, and we, you know, he kind of catered for different needs that I did. It worked out okay, but towards the end, it wasn't working, unfortunately, and we had to admit that it wasn't working and just come back. You know, that's fine. It's better to admit that it's not working out sooner rather than keep going down that rabbit hole. And you know, it doesn't. For a lot of businesses, they don't know when to stop.
Yeah,
exactly. You got to know. You got to be honest with yourself, which is super important but hard. And to say the truth, is this really working or not? And I knew it wasn't working after a couple of months. I was right. It's time to call it a day now. So
yeah, I think realism is really important.
Yeah. You get caught up in the hype or this projected vision, but if you're not getting the results that you need or to sustain income in the business, you got to change your strategy or walk away, which a lot of people can't. And unfortunately, they go bankrupt as a consequence, or all sorts happens. But fortunately, I've always had the ability to see it for what it is and then keep going or walk away.
Yeah.
How did you know when to walk away?
That's a great question. I was trying really hard to make it work, and I felt like I wasn't being reciprocated by the other person. I was getting up early, he'd still be in bed, but that's besides the point. I just knew that we're in the south of France, which is a very wealthy area. It's like the equivalent of London, where people have plenty of money, or disposable income, I should say. And I just wasn't getting anywhere with it. I just maybe have a client in the morning, maybe one in the afternoon. I'm like walking around, flyers, posters, the lot. And unfortunately, language barriers where I try, and I just felt like I wasn't welcomed or wasn't accepted. And I just had to accept it for what it is and say, okay, it's time to go back home now. And I was okay with that. It was more of a feeling rather than a thinking thing. I knew deep down, like a gut feeling, that I had to move on. And I was okay with that. So I was at peace with it, and I came back.
I think it's really important to listen to that gut feeling, isn't it?
I've got better as I've got older with age and wisdom, but if you ignore it, it keeps coming up, So you have to listen not just to your mind, but also to what you feel. That's super important, being connected to both.
I think that's a really great way to look at it. And connecting your mind and your body, which is something you talk about a lot on your Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I think in the Western world, we only live entirely from the neck up. We think and think and think, but we don't pay attention to any of this. It's like we're two separate entities. But I believe, and there's a lot of belief that everything's connected as one. So I do a lot of, I'll discuss this later in the interview, but I do a lot of mindfulness and meditation, which I find critical for my mental well-being, and just keep me in a nice, calm, peaceful state, which helps me be a better trainer and a better person, I like to think. And it's paying attention to everything rather than just what's going on in your head. I believe that's super important.
As a personal trainer, you know better than anyone how important mental health is on how important exercise is on your mental health. Can you tell us a bit about the effects that exercising can have on your overall well-being, not just your physical well-being?
My personal experience, or from people that I train?
A bit of both, maybe.
So it's not so much how long you live for, but it's the quality of life that you live.
Yeah.
It's important to have longevity and live for a long period of time. But I believe if you're not feeling good about yourself and feel, accepting of yourself as a whole, then it's very difficult to have a good quality of life. And that whatever energy you carry, I believe, radiates. So if you feel good about yourself and you're positive and you have a good perspective on life, that's going to help your mental well-being, and it rubs off on everyone you come into contact with. Exercise is super important for the endorphins, and just having a goal. Like I can't stress that enough. Is like in life, if you don't have some form of goal, no matter how big or small it is, it's tied in with positive emotion, which is the dopamine circuit of the brain, which is like the pursuit, which is super important. So if you have a little goal as small as like losing 2 pounds this week, it gives you the positive emotion that's associated with it. If you don't have a goal, it's very easy to wander and not feel good about yourself, and then slip into bad habits and all that stuff. So it's not just feeling and looking good, but also having a positive perspective on life.
Yeah.
And that's just from doing 30 minutes a day. I'm not one to preach and say you've got to go down to the gym, lift weights 5 days a week, but do something every day. Go for a walk with your dog, or walk with a loved one, or maybe go for a jog. Anything that makes you feel good, and it doesn't have to be super intense, but just be active. We're designed to move, right? We're designed to move around. We're not designed to sit in chairs 10, 12 hours a day. If you're tight and stiff, you're not going to feel great, and you get back pain, and so it continues. But I encourage someone to do some form of exercise every single day for mental well-being, and for physical well-being is super important. And keeping awake, because obesity is on the rise in the UK right now. It's a serious problem.
Yeah. How do you manage to keep your clients motivated and engaged? Because it's one thing for them to come to you for help. It's the next thing for you to actually help them carry out what their goal is. How do you?
That's a really good question. So I try and every client that comes to me, I always have a full consultation for about an hour.
Yeah.
And obviously, just first meeting them, they might be a bit nervous, so they don't know what to expect. And I try to go into a place of not being judgmental, because I was that person that went to a trainer when I was 15, didn't know what I was doing. And you have to remind yourself that rather than being this, and kind of like discovering what the person wants, their core values and what makes them feel good, and then pursue that. So, I might have somebody who wants to lose weight. Okay, you want to lose weight, but why do you want to lose weight? And obviously I don't go too personal because I've just met them, but try and get closer to their truth and what will motivate them to keep going. Not just like, it's very, very easy to get caught up in the surface level things. We want to get down to the core that will keep them going for a week, month, a year, 5 years, whether they want to lose weight because they've just had a child and they want to be healthy and be around for their child's life, or there's a big wedding coming up. And then once that goal is achieved, what's the next thing? So I don't stay too in one lane. So you might want to lose weight, they've lost weight. Okay, now they want to take up a sport. They want to get good at that sport. So what's the components of that sport? And so it continues. So it's not remaining static. Like for example, I was doing rugby for a while, then I did some bodybuilding and powerlifting. I got really big and strong up to about 21, 22 years old. And then I decided that I didn't feel good being that big and strong anymore. So I decided to lose the weight. Then I was doing boxing and self-defense for a little while. And then I constantly changing the goal. Obviously have a time frame as well, 3 months, 6 months, a year. And then if you don't feel you enjoy it anymore, move on. It's okay. Like, you don't have to be stuck in that identity. Move on to the next thing. So having the goal, having the core value of the goal, and finding a route to the goal. That's how I approach it. I mean, everyone's different, but that's how I personally approach it with clients.
You must have those clients that want to give up halfway through. How do you carry on engaging them? Even though their goal is there, how do you manage that?
Okay, so if I'm being honest, if I meet somebody, you can tell, because I've been doing it for so long, if somebody wants it or not.
Yeah.
You get a certain energy of conviction that they are willing to try, and that person's going to be around with you for a long time. And then sometimes they're a bit not sure, or they're being forced to come and see me by whoever. And I can normally tell that. But to answer your question, I just lowered the goal. So if the goal is so big and so daunting for the person, like they've said, I want to lose 3 stone, 4 stone, and they're not losing weight, let's try and lose half a stone first.
Yeah.
Lower the bar. Because I find for a lot of people, I made this mistake myself when I was younger. I put the expectations so high on myself that it was almost like crushing. So that's the long-term goal. Let's try and, what can we do this week? And actually achieve it. Because if you don't achieve it, it can knock people's confidence, self-esteem pretty quickly. So if I got a lady or a guy that wants to lose 3 stone, okay, let's lose 2 pounds this week. They lost 2 pounds. That may feel like insignificant, but that's 2 pounds closer to the goal. That sounds a bit cliche or a bit small, but you're getting closer and closer and closer, and the confidence and self-esteem builds as a consequence. But to answer your question, I would just lower the goal initially, and once they've achieved that, then gradually raise the bar. But it has to be just in reach or just in grasp for that person. If it's so far away and so unachievable, usually they leave. And I made that mistake when I was younger as a trainer. Now I've had more experience. I've trained probably, including being a fitness for way over 1,000 people now. And just see, there's a lot of people, a lot of different body shapes, sizes and mentalities and personalities. You see patterns. you see personality types, and you don't say anything. You see patterns in people behaviors, and you think, right, this person's super driven, I can set this high. This person's really struggling with their self-esteem or their mental health currently. This set it here, and gradually, so you have to adjust it along the way and be flexible, but just lower the bar temporarily and then go. And that's how I keep people. If they're not still motivated at that point, maybe it's not time.
Yeah. It sounds like you've got a real skill with being able to be flexible with different client groups.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage challenging clients, if you get any?
It challenging in the sense of, what would you, for example?
So challenging behaviors, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had plenty of those. So if someone lives a certain lifestyle and they expect to look like the guy in front, Men's Health front cover, we got to have a discussion and be realistic. If you're going out partying your friends 2 or 3 nights a week and eating out 2 or 3 nights a week, and they're expecting to look like, you know, a Hollywood actor, I would just say, we can still get you better than you were, but you've got to be realistic, because your lifestyle is not in accordance to how high the goal is.
Yeah.
And if they're like, okay, I get it, cool. But if they have these super high expectations on what I deliver them, considering their lifestyle is not willing to change, there has been times where I've had the conversation where I've just had to say, maybe not ready, or, you know, you need to lower the goal, or you got to make some changes, otherwise this isn't going to happen. You know, and just be honest with people. Not being rude or blunt, but like you sit them down there saying, well, I'm not 10% body fat yet, which is like the number in the fitness industry where people start to get abs and stuff.
Yeah.
But they're going out drinking 2 or 3 nights a week, they're eating out with friends, they're not tracking their calories, etc. And you just got to have the honest conversation. Like, you can make small improvements, but to make the goal that you want to be realized, you've got to take some sacrifices, and just being honest with people. And they don't want to hear it, but they'll always respect you for it, you know? I don't ever sell people a dream, which probably sometimes I shoot myself in the foot, because there's a lot of, in the fitness industry, like 6 weeks, 6-pack. I've never, me personally, I can only speak for myself, I couldn't sleep at night selling somebody a dream. My integrity is worth too much for me personally. Yeah, so I'd rather tell somebody the truth and say, okay, we need to make some change for this to be realized, or be okay with the fact you're losing £1 a week because you're going out 3 times a week. For me, that's far more valuable, and they don't like it, but they'll respect you for it. And I find that far more important, and at least you're not lying to them and they can't come back to you then.
And
that's how I manage it. But I'm also understanding, you know, I'm compassionate, I'm not like rude or mean or bossy. You know, it's hard to change certain habits overnight, it takes time. So I'm compassionate and very patient also.
I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with clients who might have a certain body image about themselves, perhaps lack of self-esteem, and it's really affecting their mental health? How do you perhaps deal with those kind of situations?
Sure. That's a really good question, because that's happened a lot over the years. So for example, I'll be careful what I say, but if someone wants to lose weight, let's say, and they've lost weight and they've achieved the goal and they're still not happy, or they're not satisfied with the outcome they've done, let's say they lost 2 stone, they look great and healthy, and you can clearly see that something's not quite right, or they're not satisfied with their outcome and they want to lose another 2 stone, and now they're starting to get like underweight, or, you know, starting to have health problems as a consequence, which I have had. I have to, again, be honest and have a conversation with them saying, is everything okay? Or, you know, what's going on? And not be too intrusive, but you'll see patterns of behavior, because when you're a personal trainer, you're seeing someone between 1 to 5 times a week. So you've developed like a quite close relationship with the person, or you should, if you're building a good rapport. And if I'm concerned, I say, look, I again, my integrity and my professionalism, I say, I don't feel going any further with this. I don't feel comfortable going any further with this because it's getting dangerous now. You know, whether, you know, if someone wants to lose a severe amount of weight and it's compromising their mental and physical well-being, I'd have a conversation saying, I don't feel comfortable going any further with this with you, or I would refer them to a doctor, or because I have a network of people that I work with. So I work with a counsellor, I work with a mindfulness coach, which I've both used myself, chiropractor, masseuse, nutritionist, etc. So I have people I can go to when it's no longer my area of expertise.
Yeah.
And that's again going back to the professional integrity, because it's very easy to go, oh, I'll help you, I'll save you, but I didn't go to uni for that. You know, that's not my skill set, but I do recognize when it's becoming a problem. And if I'm concerned about the person's well-being, rather than taking £40 an hour off them or whatever it may be, I'll have the conversation saying, maybe you speak to this person for a little while and then come back to me when you're feeling better about yourself, or we'll resolve getting down to the core issue of it. I've had that quite a few times. I wouldn't take it on and say, I'll fix you, because I'll help them and recognize it because I've done it for so long, but be kind, be gentle, and say, maybe you should have a conversation with this person and get to the core issue of the problem rather than just the physical.
I think it
happens from time to time. I think body image is getting better now, and I think apart from the social media with so much pressure of how people should look, but I think people being more realistic and people more educated on fitness and health, so they're, as a consequence, I think they're getting healthier, I like to think, than 5-10 years ago, but we'll see. I hope that's the case.
I think it's really good that you've got that safety net of professionals working with you, so that it doesn't all fall on you. So that you don't have all the pressure of.
Well, that's really interesting, because when I was younger, I didn't have the connections or the network that I do now. And I would take everything on myself, and as a consequence, that would deteriorate me. I'd feel stressed or anxious because I have all this responsibility, and I didn't have the experience when I was younger either, say 10 years ago. Now I recognize the problem because you see patterns, right? When you've lived for long enough, you see certain behaviors, patterns, which may not be healthy or maybe a detriment to the individual. And because I've been doing this for a long time and I'm well known in the area for what I do, I will go to that professional and say, look, this person desperately needs some, someone to talk to, or they need to address the nutrition because it's getting dangerous now. And having that network has made a massive difference, huge difference. And I think the client respects you because you're saying that's not my area of expertise, rather than being an expert of everything. Because there's always that trainer that I can do everything. Well, you can't. You're a trainer, you're good at what you do, and you try and help the person, but you're not a psychiatrist or a nutritionist or a chiropractor. Again, it goes back to professionalism and integrity, which is super important. You may lose that client, but they respect you and you save their well-being rather than gain another couple £100 in your back pocket and then damage that person. That happens a lot. I see, I have seen trainers give the client poor advice, and then you see the client deteriorate physically and mentally as a consequence. And I think that's super dangerous, and you got to know when it's out of your skill set and be honest and say, you need to go see this person. But it happens far too often that they take the advice from a trainer who doesn't know what they're doing, and that needs to be addressed in the fitness industry. That's a serious problem.
What are the main misconceptions you come across in your clients that would help a lot of the public if it was more general knowledge?
So you get a lot to see these like 6, 12 week, 20-week transformations, and it's great. But I hate to say it, there's a lot of performance enhancing drugs in the industry. Now, I'll be careful what I say now, but my stance on performance enhancing drugs is I'm kind of neutral. So if you want to go down that route, that's your responsibility. and you make that decision and you take the consequences that go with it. But the problem in the fitness industry is you see this 12-week transformation where this guy may be a bit overweight, and all of a sudden he's absolutely ripped, he's got an amazing six-pack, and there'd be a biography or a couple of paragraphs on how they changed, but there's no discussion on the performance enhancing drugs. It's not brought into light. And I think that's really deceiving, really, really deceiving. And then somebody who's natural, who doesn't take performance enhancing drugs, tries really hard for 12 weeks and makes nowhere near the amount of progress and gets disappointed.
Yeah.
Or really disheartened. Or the photo's been really edited and photoshopped. You know, that's another common one. And so again, I'm neutral about the performance enhancing drugs, but it's their responsibility and their choice, but be honest about it. So if someone was to use them, don't have to go into the ins and outs, but say this isn't a natural transformation or they were helped.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, it's just chicken and rice and we did cardio for 30 minutes in the morning. It's not the truth, you know. And then what happens is you get someone who's 16 or 18 years old as a guy, gets really enthusiastic, doesn't make the progress, and then he gets really disappointed or depressed because he's tried so hard and not made the progress that person has. And then they go find somebody with the performance enhancing drugs, and then they damage themselves because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's a major one of fitness industry. Again, I'm neutral, but be honest and take the responsibility.
Yeah.
And then the photoshopping is a serious issue, or changing things so the expectation is too high.
Yeah.
My advice for people would be is compete with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, try and be better than you were last week. Try and lose the weight, the measurements of what you have rather than that person.
Yeah.
So try and be better than you were. That's my motto of the company is, you know, become the best version of yourself. That's all you can be, right? Rather than keep comparing yourself to everyone else, and it's endless, and you can make yourself really, it damages a lot of people's self-esteem comparing yourself to that Hollywood star or that person or whatever.
Yeah.
So my advice would be is compete with yourself and just be aware of what's going on behind the scenes in the industry. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I think people need to be more honest.
Yeah.
Or a bit more transparent, let's say, or allude to that at least, rather than just saying not bringing it up at all. And then it's a nice cat, by the way.
Sorry,
she's bothering us.
Yeah, she's cute.
Still cute. We've had her for a while.
So yeah, that's what I would say on that matter.
Sorry, we distracted you there.
That's all right. It's okay.
I think you made some really good points about Photoshop. I think it's such a big thing at the moment that people are using, and really, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's creating a false image of a person.
Yeah,
a false ideal, and then people believe that false idea is real. And then when they don't get there, they get very disappointed, depressed. So I have clients say, well, look at this, what this person's doing on Instagram. And I get it all the time. Look at this person's body. But I'm saying that's probably edited, or they're taking something. You know, again, I'm neutral about it. I'm not for or against, but that's the truth. And they're not going to tell you that because they're trying to sell you a 6-week transformation package, which I don't do. I will do a 12-week transformation to someone, but I'll be honest about what to expect if you're not taking anything. And if you were taking anything, I don't promote that. So you may need to go to somebody else. I try not to take side on things. It is what it is. It's not going to go away in the fitness industry, but there needs to be some more awareness shined onto it rather than pushed underneath the carpet somewhere. You know, that's my stance on it. So
thank you for sharing that with us.
That's okay.
So this kind of interlocks with mental health, this area, and I was just wondering how does exercise help mental health? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I think exercise is super important for mental health. But, you know, as humans, we're designed to move and do particular activities and not be sat down in a chair all day. There's actually been studies now showing that sitting for prolonged periods of time actually has a higher risk of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So the longer that you sit, day in, day out and not do any activity, there's a direct correlation to weight gain, diabetes, and cardiovascular health, and poor cognitive function, because you're not pumping the blood through your body like you should.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say people have to go on some extreme regime, but you have to do some form of exercise every single day. We're designed to move. And also, if your weight increases, you have all these symptoms like high blood pressure, poor blood sugars, you're more prone to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, poor cognitive function. Of course, if you're gaining weight and you don't feel good about yourself, and then what happens is there's a domino effect, right? So then you don't feel good about yourself, you have low self-worth, you have poor self-esteem, and then typically the person might engage in bad behaviors like drinking too much or overeating, and then it's a perpetual downward spiral. Anxiety that then can lead to depression, etc., etc. If you go, let's say you go out for a walk, like I have a dog, but my girlfriend's taking for a walk right now. Going out for a walk in the sunshine for 30 minutes a day, you just feel so much better about yourself. It doesn't. I think a lot of people get caught up in, they put off their fitness goal because they think it's too complicated.
Yeah.
That's massive. Like people think it's going to be some complex all singing all dance routine, and they expect to hear some complicated answer from me because I'm charging a reasonable amount of money for training, but it doesn't have to be complicated. And the more, I think from my experience, the longer I've been doing this, the more simple you can make somebody's routine, the more successful it will be. And people don't want to hear that answer because they're paying me quite a bit of money and they think it has to be this all singing, all dancing complex thing. And the more complex it is, the more you talk yourself out of it, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of that, to answer your question, I think that taking care of yourself or having some form of self-care is super important for your mental well-being. If you keep a healthy weight, you feel good about yourself, you have better self-esteem, you better have better self-confidence, which is going to ripple into your work, it's going to ripple into your relationships, it's going to you can be a pillar of your family or your community, because you're not only if somebody can look after themselves, to me that's a sign of that they can take care of others. I fell in the trap of at one point I was training so many people, I was trying to make money to achieve financial goals, but I neglected my own well-being and health, and I didn't feel good. So what I had to do was I actually had it sounds ridiculous, but I had an hour a day for my own personal exercise, and I felt so much better in a very quick period of time that I became a better personal trainer because I felt good about myself physically and mentally. So if you feel good about your body and you're at a healthy weight and you've got good cardiovascular health and you're not carrying excess body fat, you're going to feel good about yourself, and it has a positive effect. So I think if you don't take care of yourself, it spirals out of control. It's not like, I just gained a little bit of weight and that's it. It has a knock-on effects with your mental health, your self-esteem. It has a knock-on effect with your diabetes, potentially in cardiovascular down the road. But if you take care of yourself, feel good about yourself, you're in good health, you feel better about yourself, your mental well-being improves, your self-esteem improves, it compounds. And that's what I would say about that. So it's not just, you look good. It's like you feel good about yourself, you feel like you look good, you have good self-esteem, and you're mentally well as a consequence, So I think it ripples either way, depending which way you go. But and exercise doesn't have to be complicated. Going out for a walk, or go jogging, or skipping, or it doesn't have to be anything complicated. Just keep it simple, and also do something that you enjoy, because then you'll keep doing it. Don't do something that you hate, because you'll give up real quick.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
That's all right.
Yeah, just leading on from that, I know you've had your own journey with mental health. Can you tell us a bit about how that started and your journey along the way?
Yeah, sure. So looking back on it now, it all started from my childhood, like a lot of people. I've been very public about my mental health. I wasn't before because I was a bit ashamed and embarrassed, but I realise now that a lot of people are struggling out there, particularly with COVID. A lot of people are isolated and very lonely, and if you do have a mental health issue, then what's the word I'm looking for? It puts
Escalates.
fuel to the fire. It puts fuel to the fire, makes it worse, right?
Yeah.
When you're alone and isolated. But for me, it started when I was 10. Unfortunately, I lost my father to suicide, and as a consequence, I became very, looking back, because I've had like 18 months of therapy now through counselling and mindfulness mentoring. It affected my confidence and self-esteem massively, and I became very introverted and very shy as a kid, because I was suffering. This is all because of therapy. I realise this now. Didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
I became very shy and introverted, and I want to be left alone, you know. And as a consequence, I'm an only child, so I spent long periods of time by myself. Unless I was socialising with friends, I was alone a lot of the time. So I wanted to be left alone. I was very introverted, and what happened is I became quite anxious. I didn't know. I always knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I wasn't educated on the matter. And then what happened was, obviously I wasn't aware of calories or healthy or bad foods. I would then comfort eat as a consequence, make myself feel better. And I gained a lot of weight quite quickly. Because I always, as a kid, I was quite slim or medium healthy weight. And then when my dad died, I comfort ate a lot. I didn't know this, but looking back on it now, and I'm educated and understand myself fully, I comfort ate to make myself feel temporarily better. I didn't know that. It just made me feel good, right? Like everyone has their little vices to temporarily feel better. And then I gained a lot of weight, but I was always good at sports, even though when I was heavier. And then that's when I got into the fitness and health thing, where I had the trainer I mentioned earlier when I was 15, and I lost the weight, and I felt so much better about myself, which helped. That really, I think looking back on it now, if it wasn't for fitness and health, I think that I wouldn't be in a good place right now. You know, that was like, at that time, that was my saving grace. You know, having a purpose and then having a goal, and then losing the weight that I gained through the comfort eating of, you know, not having my father around. Because, you know, as we get older, there's different vices, but at the time it was food. And yeah, so having the fitness and having a goal and losing the weight helped my mental health tremendously. Because when I was eating too much and I wasn't exercising, I felt terrible, you know, looking back on it. And then, so that was that. And then I was always slightly anxious, you know, there's like underneath the surface, there's some form of anxiety, but I didn't know what it was. And I always used to overthink way too much, way too much. And I'd like overanalyze everything. I, you know, very negative self-talk. But when you don't do meditation or mindfulness, you don't see the negative self-talk. You become the negative self-talk, right? So you have a certain thought and you think it's real, and then you act out whether it's good or bad. But when I was 19, when I got into the fitness industry, I met a friend called Ian, who I've lost touch with, unfortunately. I'll try and get in touch with him, but he practiced Buddhist meditation, or Buddhism, and he taught me how to meditate or mindfulness when I was 19, and it like completely transformed my life. I just felt so much better about myself, and I was a lot calmer, a lot more peaceful. I was a lot more self-accepting of myself, and I was a lot happier, right? And I knew how important that was, because if you don't take care of your mental health, it can deteriorate really fast. And then what happened was, I think he left to Ireland or somewhere and moved away when I was about 22, 23, when I went to the south of France. And then what happened was I stopped meditating for a couple of years. And then I kind of ignored it. And when you're that age, you're like, oh yeah, it's fine. I'll be, you know, you're kind of like, no problem. I now realize that mental health, if you do have an underlying issue or you have suffered mental health, it's a daily thing. Like you have to stay, it's like cleaning your house. You've got to stay on top of it, right? Otherwise it just gets worse and worse. So to answer your question, I had a period of like really bad anxiety in my mid-20s. I was trying to build a business. I was probably working about 90 hours a week, and I wasn't sleeping properly. And then I wasn't eating properly. and then I started gaining weight again because I was slim and healthy, and then I deteriorated. So it goes in cycles, right? It went in cycles for me, and I wasn't sleeping properly. Then the anxiety got worse, and then I had to get I saw like talking space for a little while, and then I started meditating again. And within a couple of months, I was like significantly better. Like I lost the weight again. It wasn't like, it was like a stone or two. It wasn't nothing major, but my mental health was better because of the self-care. So now I find that self-care is super important, like having a certain amount of sleep. I try not to take on I work a lot of hours, but I try not to take on too much work, because then my self-care deteriorates as a consequence. I know what happens when I don't take care of myself, right? Yeah. And then I meditate or do some mindfulness every single morning. I haven't missed a day in about 18 months. It could be as short as 5 minutes. It can be as long as half an hour, but it puts you in a calm place, and then you can just not take your thoughts don't have so much power over you, you know, yeah. And you're in a much calm, more peaceful place and a lot more present. And that's, so for me, the mental health thing is just as important, if not more important than the fitness, because if your mental well-being is not well, or your mind's not right, nothing else is going to go well. It all starts from here and ends in here, you know. So then I fixed my anxiety for a while. And then I had this kind of like, in my mid-20s, I had this goal of like, I want the house, like that dream that every young guy has, you know, ambitious guy, want the house, want the flash car. I mentioned this post the other day on my Instagram. Yeah. Flash car, jewelry, watches, all the fancy materialistic things. And this was all subconscious. In other words, I wasn't aware of why I was that driven. And the drive was from trying to prove something from my childhood, I think, if I'm being honest. And I had to prove something to myself, and almost I felt like I had to prove myself to others, because I'm dyslexic, so I had a lot of learning difficulties when I was younger. And I felt like I had to prove something to myself, and I was like, look what I've come from, and look what I can achieve. It was something like that, you know. I only discovered that through therapy. And so I was like hell-bent on achieving this goal of like really successful business, make a lot of money. I was quite selfish at the time in my mid-20s, so I have to admit, and car, house, all that stuff I discussed. And I remember being 30 years old, and then, so I'm 33 now, and then I achieved all this stuff, and I felt better temporarily, and then I felt like something was missing. I couldn't put it into words. I felt like there was something missing, or there was a lack. And then I had this like emotional pain come up. It wasn't mental anymore, because the mental stuff was anxiety, is thought, projection, fear of the future, right? This emotional pain was like, I didn't know at the time, but it was depression. So I had this emotional pain that I couldn't really explain to you until recently when I got the help. But it was this emotional pain that was really overbearing. And then what would happen is, it would feed the negative thought, and then the negative thought would then feed the emotion. I've only learned this through a very dear friend of mine, Hugh Poulton, who's a mindfulness expert that I see often, and he's helped me a lot with my mental well-being, and he's helped me get in touch with which I discussed earlier, my bodily emotions. I think a lot of mental health problems leads to the fact that we don't know how to deal with our emotions, you know. Particularly, as I would have to say, as men, we're terrible with our emotion. We live only in the head and our thoughts. We don't deal with like what's going on inside. So I had this emotional stuff that was really painful, but I didn't know how to deal with it. And then what happened was, I had all this stuff that I thought would make me happy, and it actually made me worse. I have all this stuff now, I don't have the answers. So I have the car, the house, the money, all this stuff in the bank, and I should feel better. Like in society, you have this stuff, you should feel good about yourself, right? Yeah. But I felt good for a while, and then this feeling came of like heavy emotional pain, and I was like, why do I feel like this, you know? And then you question yourself, like, I've achieved all this stuff, I worked so hard, I should be proud, but I feel worse. I have all this stuff, and I don't know what's going on. And so I went into this period of depression, was pretty severe, to be honest. And sorry.
Okay.
And then, just give me a moment.
Do you want to perhaps have a
That's
thought?
okay, it's okay. I was worried because obviously with what happened to my father, I was worried that that's what's going to happen to me. And that's when I knew I needed to get help. And then fortunately, I got help and I got a really caring girlfriend and amazing family. And then I went through therapy and doing meditation every day, making sure I take care of myself. And I pulled myself out of it pretty quickly. In about 6 months, I completely turned it around because through having the therapy and understanding my childhood, I understood why I was the way I was. So it was like a self-discovery thing. It was really painful at the time, but having go through that, I wouldn't regret it because I'm much happier now than I've ever been. I'm much more content and a lot more grateful. You know, I'm not more grateful for having my girlfriend that's very loving, I have an amazing dog, amazing friends and family. And I have a complete different perspective on life because I know who I really am rather than who I was. So that person who was really driven and wanted to achieve all these material things, that's the kind of person I created to deny my past or not have to address that stuff, you know, which a lot of people have. And then when I reached a head where I was not well at all, fortunately I'm out of it now and I'm a lot better, you know, thank God. I had to find out who I really was to pull myself out of that. So it was painful at the time, I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm very grateful. So I've a much better perspective of life now and I'm much more grateful for the simple things. And because I've been through that firsthand and pulled myself out of it and now I'm in a much better place, there's hope for others, you know. I think when you're really depressed or really anxious, you think only for the day and you think that's only, that's going to be forever. I'm going to be forever depressed, forever anxious. And if you just hold in there and get some professional help, it does get better. And because you've been through that and you pull yourself through that, you have a different perspective on life, you know? Like I'm really grateful for little things like seeing like a nice dog or someone smiling at me across the road. I wouldn't even pay attention to that a couple of years ago. I'd be completely driven on me, my money, my business, and then nothing outside of that mattered. Now it's the simple things. I'm still goal driven, still oriented, but it comes from a different place. And I like to think that because I've pulled myself through that there's hope for others. And that's kind of my mission now. So having the exercise and health also, I was there in a very dark place and I pulled myself through that and I'm in a great place. And I'm very grateful to have in the position I'm in and having a different perspective in life. And it is possible to get better, you know?
Yeah.
So that's it really. So I like to be honest and transparent because I think there's too much in society and particularly social media is like me and my amazing life, my amazing car, my amazing lifestyle. But as soon as that camera switches off, a lot of those people are very unhappy, you know, because I was like that. I know that, but I know that because I was like that. And, you know, get to the truth of it. And I think as hard as it is for me being honest and being transparent about what I went through, saying this was my childhood, I achieved all this material stuff that most 30-year-old guys or guys and girls would love to have and still not feel good about yourself, and getting down to the core issue of it, fixing yourself, which is the hardest part, and then pulling yourself out of that again. It is possible because I've done it, you know. And that's kind of my message going forward. Like I'm looking into, so I had some breathing counselling when I was about 18 months ago, and they helped me no end. So now I'm volunteering. So I've signed up to do some volunteering in my spare time to give back for what people help me. And then my dog Mikey is going to be a therapy dog. So I'm waiting to hear back from them. So yeah, it changes you, you know, you don't come out the same person. But I'm grateful I went through that as hard as it was, because I have a completely different perspective of life and I'm a lot happier now, a lot more content with the simple things, you know?
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question as best as my ability. But
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you to share that with us. So thank you.
That's okay. I think people can tell it's real. I'm not, you know, and if it helps one person, I've done my job. I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I did. It was horrible. But I'm a lot better now. I'm healthy, I'm fit again, and I'm in a much better place. But if I can help one person not go through what I've done, then my purpose in life is accomplished.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's
That's
great
all right.
how you openly talk about it as well, because I think the only way to improve this like kind of taboo topic is to kind of get the elephant out of the room and talk about it, because
Yeah,
especially I
exactly.
think
If
yeah
you tap dance around it and don't see it for what it is, then mental health problems are going to keep going on,
yeah
and it's not going to get solved. The thing is, it's painful, you know. But if you face it and see it for what it is, and you admit that you've got a problem or it's deteriorating your quality of life, which it was for me at the time, and you address it, what kept me going was that I knew if I fix this, my life would be so much better, you know. And I mentally, I'm the best place I've been. Emotionally, I can much better with my emotions now because I've had the professional help and the mindfulness mentoring. And there is hope, and there's a life. There's another life of the end of that. But you have to be willing to. The thing is, you have to admit that it's deteriorating your quality of life, and then you have to admit that you need help. If you ignore it, it just grows. I ignored it for a while. You know, I'll be okay. It's fine. It's always there. There's a monkey on the shoulder kind of thing. You address it, when you turn around, it shrinks. It's not as big as you thought it was. So for me, if I can help somebody, I think particularly with men, they don't address their mental health problems at all. It's always brushed under the rug, or let's go out to the pub and have a pint, not really get down to the bottom of it. Women are a lot better at talking, I think. That's just from what I see. But if I can help one person not go through what I did or prevent that, then I've accomplished my goal, you know.
Do you feel like, because I know that you share your story on your social media a lot with clients, do you feel like your story and your journey helps your clients in certain ways?
Yeah. Because if you didn't know me and you didn't know what I had to go through and what I had going on in my childhood, you think, oh, this guy, again, house, cars, successful, he's in shape, he's got his life to go, right? He can't have any problems. But then if I'm open and honest about it, wait, he's just like me. I'm a normal person that's had his own hardships like that. And then what happens is I find I've had a lot of clients open up about their own personal struggles or own mental health problems. I say, this has happened. Like, go speak to my mindfulness mentor guy, or go speak to the therapist I had. And I've had 4 or 5 people like that recently that have gone, and it's helped their quality of life significantly, or helped the relationship with their wife or their partner, or their own self-esteem. And to me, that's great, because I'm not just helping them physically, but mentally. It all goes hand in hand. So that's why I'm a big advocate of it. Like I say on my Instagram, I'm a mental health advocate, because if you don't take care of yourself, your mental health deteriorates and the quality of your life. And also, if you're not well, the people around you suffer. You know, a lot of people don't know that, but like my mum suffered tremendously because I wasn't well at the time, looking back on it, and, you know, my girlfriend and everything else. But as soon as I decided to fix myself, I felt better, and they had a sense of relief. So a lot of people who are ill don't realize that you're affecting other people, or they do, and it makes them feel worse. But if you fix it, then it helps everyone else around you too. You know, and that's important to know also. So sharing my story, sometimes I feel like I'm exposing myself too much. To be honest, I feel like I'm sharing too much, but I know I'm helping people, because not many people are willing to share to the level that I do. But I'm okay with that, because I know who I am now. I'm comfortable with, I know that other people hide, because I hid for a long time.
Yeah.
So by me, you know, by me not hiding, I have a tremendous amount of pride behind that, because a lot of people aren't willing to do that. But I know if I share my story, that's going to help someone else, and that's good enough for me, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think sharing your emotions is a negative, but it's actually a really big strength. I think that's something.
I think vulnerability is strength. A lot of people don't see it that way. You know, I didn't. I thought being vulnerable was weak for a long time. But if you suppress and repress emotion, it only gets worse. I know that now, having been educated on the matter. But if you share your vulnerability, and only share what you feel comfortable with, right? You don't have to go as far as I do on my Instagram. Like, I'm pretty open. But if you just say to someone, I'm not feeling too good today, can I have a chat with you? Someone that you trust. Super important. If you keep it to yourself, it just gets worse, you know. So that's what I had to say on the matter. So as long as I'm helping somebody for my own journey and they're feeling better, I've done my job. I'm content with that.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could perhaps give people a bit of advice on, if they are being triggered by their anxieties, how do they notice that it's the anxieties that are triggering something, and
That's a very good question. That's a really good question. Because the thing is, if you're not aware of it, you're not aware of it, right? And that's where for me, the mindfulness and meditation is super important, because you become aware of the patterns rather than becoming the patterns. There's a big difference. But to answer your question, I would say you have to see if it's affecting your quality of life. You know, is it so bad that you don't want to leave the house because you're so anxious, you're scared to get outside your front door? It hasn't happened for long. I mean, because of meditation mindfulness, I don't have anxiety anymore, thankfully. But I remember what it was like to be anxious. And if it's to a point where you don't want to go outside your house, or you're dreading going to work or seeing a particular person, or you don't go to a social event, you feel like you're being judged, or you've become very self-conscious of certain things, or it's hindering you with your relationships or strange behaviors. Like the common one I would say is avoidance, avoiding things. And what happens is when you avoid things, you become very self-isolated. The problem is it gets worse because you're strengthening that pattern within yourself, you know. So I would say if you recognize you're not going out the house, or you recognize it's hard to get out of the house and go to work, or you're anxious about something, or you're worrying all the time, and all you're thinking about is worry, then it needs to be addressed, because what happens is it takes over your life. And then what happens is the problem with mental health is you can't see if someone's suffering. You know, if someone's got a broken leg or a broken arm, they clearly got a broken leg or a broken arm. If someone's depressed or anxious, you can't really see it. I can see it because I've had it, and I can pick it up on people because I'm very sensitive to seeing that because I've had it. But for a lot of people who haven't had it, you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't smell it. It's invisible almost, you know, what goes on in the person's head and emotions. But to answer your question, I would say if you're avoiding things is a massive sign. Like you're not going out, you're avoiding social gatherings, you're avoiding seeing people, you avoid going to work, or you know your quality of work's deteriorating because you're worrying all the time, and it's just worry, then it needs to be addressed, because what happens is it gets worse, because if you avoid, you hide, and it strengthens. It's that domino effect I was talking about earlier. So I would say recognize. So what I did was, when I was less aware, I'd have a pen and paper and say, okay, how is this affecting me today? You know, am I avoiding someone? Am I avoiding this particular piece of work so I think it's too much? Am I not going out the house? Or these kind of things. And if there's quite a few on that list, it's a problem. But the hard part is admitting that there is a problem, because a lot of people are in denial, and they think, oh no, it's fine. But if it's affecting you and the people in your sphere of influence, you know, family, girlfriend, partner, friends, it needs to be addressed, because to be honest, if you don't address it, I find it just gets worse. So have an inventory or piece of paper saying, how is this affecting me today? Because if you're not aware of your thoughts, which is very common because you become the thoughts, that's why I find mindfulness so important. If you have an inventory of how it's affected you this week or this day, okay, I haven't gone to work this day because I've been too anxious about this, and I lied about it, or whatever, or I've avoided going to this social gathering because I was really self-conscious about my image or being judged or whatever, and whatever your mind's telling you at the time, and have an inventory, then you can see it for what it really is. And then you recognize this problem, then you need to get some professional help, or take up mindfulness meditation, or go counselor, or see your doctor or something, you know. But if you see the problem and it's affecting your quality of life, then that shines light on the problem. That's what I would say.
Yeah. How did you identify the right point to seek for help? And is there a way that someone can almost foresee the trajectory so they can get help sooner without it getting even worse?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I was in the camp of denial for a while. Okay, so I addressed the anxiety in my mid-20s, which I discussed, but the depression I put off for quite a while, because I achieved all my goals and I thought I should feel good, right? You know, I've got all this stuff, and I'm relatively successful, and I've got everything material-wise I wanted, but this overwhelming depressive feeling wouldn't go away. And what would happen is the emotion, like now that I've had the counselling and the mindfulness mentor for my close friend, what happens is you have a certain emotion, it feeds a thought, and then the thought feeds emotion, it just grows like a feedback loop. Okay, so if someone's anxious and they're thinking too much about something, it feeds the emotion, and the emotion gets stronger, and then the emotion feeds, and it's a feedback loop. Without having the awareness of that, it just gets out of control. And what I find in society is if people are really anxious, depressed, they tend to find temporary escapism in something, you know. So it might be exercising too much, it might be alcohol, it might be shopping too much, it might be being addicted to working all the time, so you don't have to sit your emotions and stuff. So for me, I recognize a problem because I was partying too much, you know, because I'd feel this emotion, I had the spare money to party, so I would go out with friends, and I wouldn't normally, so in the past I wasn't a big drinker, okay? Yeah. And then I knew that my alcohol intake was starting to go up, and it was becoming a problem. Not to the point of alcoholism, but I was binge drinking, certainly. But for me, and I didn't know why I was binge drinking. And the reason why I was binge drinking was to get away from the pain of this particular emotion. But I didn't know what it was. I had this pain, I drink, I'd feel better, right? And then to recognize the problem, it was like self-medicating to get away from this uncomfortable feeling or thought. So to answer your question, I would say to recognize the problem, it's like, okay, is my mental, do I feel well, or what kind of thoughts am I having? Am I having really negative thoughts all the time? Am I not going into work? You know, is it affecting my relationship with my family and friends? I would say, you know, you go out partying too much, or you spend too much money on clothes, or I have this really negative thought all the time that won't go away, where I have this particular emotion that is very overwhelming and I don't know what to do with it. If you have any of those signs, there's a problem. Yeah. But the trick is to catch it earlier rather than later, because if it's later, it just gets worse. And then you get in more denial. So for me, my rock bottom was, I remember going out partying and I got home really late. I was supposed to be in work, this about 18 months, almost 2 years ago. I was partying, I got home super late, and I was supposed to be in work the following day, and I didn't want to go to work, couldn't face work, because my mood and my mind was just completely off, you know. What happened was I didn't sleep that night, and then I called my mum the following morning. I said, "Mum, look, this has been going on for a while now, I'm not well." And unfortunately, I got very, my mum's amazing, bless her. She came over and called the doctor, and I went to the doctor like in the afternoon, and I told the doctor what was going on. Like, I'm not feeling well. My thoughts are very destructive, but I couldn't stop it. And then I was, not now, but I was on a period of antidepressants, which helped. And I came off those, and I got counselling therapy, and gradually I felt better, and I felt better about myself. And what's really important for mental well-being, mental health, like I said, it's not, you got to work on it every day, you know. So for me, I meditate or do mindfulness every morning. I take my dog for a walk every morning. I make sure I eat relatively well. I exercise on a daily basis, whether it be walking or lifting weights. So that self-care is super important to make sure. So basically, I know what it's like to feel ill, and I put everything in place to make sure that never happens again. Yeah. So these are the behaviours that led me to this point, because I now have awareness of the subject, and these are behaviours make sure I never come back to that place again. So that's what I do. But I think if you acknowledge it is deteriorating your quality of life, or is affecting your work or your relationships, and there's a problem, and then recognizing it. And then if you're too caught up in your mind, I would just keep a little inventory or a little diary. This happened today. I avoided work, or I avoided this person, or I was quite mean to this person, even though I shouldn't be, because I was fearful or anxious. You know, because a lot of people who are aggressive, actually underneath all that's fear. You know, because they're scared, but they project this, you know, wolf mentality, and really a sheep, or whatever you want to call it. So people are really like aggressive, and really they're scared or frightened about something. So it's like it's a disguise behind a mental health problem. Yeah. So having an inventory and saying, okay, this has affected me, or I was quite mean to this person, or I avoided this situation. And what happened is, if you're really unwell, you'll see it get worse. And then contacting a doctor or a psychiatrist or a therapist. I had a counsellor for a while, which I still speak to every now and then, just to check in. And it's a constant process of making sure that you're taking care of yourself, you know. That's super. So I know what it's like to feel that way and what behaviours led to that point. Now I have awareness of it and I know how to avoid it by living this particular way and feeling good about myself. So recognizing it for what it is, keeping an inventory, and then is it affecting your life enough so it's getting unbearable? You need help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's okay.
So I was wondering, what does your day look like? Because you talk about routine, and I know that you wake up really early as well, because you talk about it.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So if you could tell us a little bit about how your day looks and also how it benefits you.
So my typical day now, if I'm working?
Yeah.
Okay, so normally I get up between like 5:30 and 6. Sometimes early, but it's between 5:30 and 6 on a weekday. On the weekends a little bit later, so I like to have a lie-in on a Sunday. So, you know, I want to lie in, but so I get up and then me and my girlfriend will go downstairs, make a cup of coffee, and then what I'll do is I'll let the dog out typically, and then I'll go in the garden if the weather's nice, or I'll sit myself downstairs and I'll do meditation or mindfulness for about anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes. And that sets me up for the day. So my mind slows down, my mind's peaceful, I'm calm, and I feel like I'm in a good place, and I take that out into the world with me. Yeah. So that's the mind for me particularly, I mean, everyone's different, but for me, the mindfulness is more important than the exercise. If my mind's right, everything else will follow.
Yeah.
If my mind's not right, everything else deteriorates. So I get the mind right first, and then everything else takes care of itself as a consequence. So I'll do a guided meditation or breath meditation or body step, whatever, all the stuff that my friend and mindfulness mentor taught me. So I'll do that, and I'll look at my diary and have like an inventory for the day. Nothing too severe, but I have 6 tasks. Okay, I need to pay this bill, this client needs their program, I have a podcast at this time, so be prepared for that, you know? So, and I'm like, right, okay. And then either I'll go straight to work, so I've got an early start, and my dog's usually, he sleeps till like 10 o'clock because he's lazy. But so he'll sleep, and then what happens, I'll come back, and if my girlfriend's still here, we'll have breakfast together. And I'll always go out for a walk in nature, because I find being in nature slows the mind down. You just feel a lot better about yourself with a bit of vitamin D from the sun. So where I live in Whitney, there's a forest nearby, and I go there a lot. And I don't take my phone with me, which is quite unusual on the side. People are on their phone too much. Another tip is, if you suffer anxiety, don't be on your phone all the time, because it just generates more thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. More thinking, and then it's like, oh. So I'll leave my phone at home, and I'll go out anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour with my dog, and it's just me in nature, and I just switch off. That's so the meditation and being out in nature is my self-care. Okay, and then I'll come back, I'll have some breakfast before I go out for a walk, take a shower, and then I just so I have my first few clients, and I just keep training clients for the rest of the day. I might come back in the afternoon, do some admin in my office here, have a nap maybe. If I've started really early, I 20-minute nap, have some lunch. I try and eat well. I still have treats, I still have junk food every now and then, but majority of my diet's clean, because I know if I eat well, I feel better about myself, okay? Physically and mentally. And then I normally finish work about 8, 9 o'clock at night. I try and finish at 8. So if I take on too much work, then I put too much pressure on myself, like I said earlier, and that's the self-care thing again. So before I take on too much work, so now I try and finish at 8, and I don't do any more work after that. So before, I keep working throughout the evening, programs, plans, planning. When 8 o'clock hits, I don't do any more now. That's it. And then I do martial arts now twice a week, 3 times a week. So I go to my martial arts lesson. It's Wing Chun. So my good friend Colin Greeny, and when he teaches self-defense, I do that a couple of times a week. Or if I got nothing to do that evening, I might listen to some music, or go out for another walk, or make some nice food. Then in the evenings, I typically would read a book, or watch some TV, or listen to some music. Like I love listening to my vinyl collection, but normally it's vinyl or book, sometimes TV. And then I keep a diary, and I always write a couple of things that I've been grateful for the day. So I'm grateful for having this podcast. I'm grateful for the weather's nice. I'm grateful that I have my health today, whatever. Simple things, 3 things to be grateful for. And the irony is, the more you have to be grateful for, you have more things to be grateful for. It's self-perpetuating. if you're suffering anxiety or depression, it's always been stuck on the negative thing rather than that person was really kind to me today, because you forget about all that stuff because you're trapped in your thoughts, right? So I have a gratitude. So I'm grateful for being healthy today. I'm grateful for lovely weather. I'm grateful for having a podcast. And I have 3 things. I'm not too self-critical, but I have 3 things to improve upon tomorrow. Get up a little bit earlier, be a bit more punctual, maybe tell the truth to the best of my ability, stuff like that. And that's pretty much my daily routine. And then on the weekends, I'm a bit more relaxed. I'll go out for a meal or a couple of drinks with a friend. And I think it's really important to socialize for mental health. We're social creatures, right? COVID has been a massive issue for self-isolation, and then you're lost in your thoughts, and it's not good. So now that restrictions are easing, going out for a meal with a friend or a couple of drinks or seeing your family or going for a roast, like tomorrow I'm going to see my grandparents for a roast, and just socialize and interact with people makes you feel so much better, you know? So that's pretty much my daily routine at the moment.
Brilliant. Yeah. Sounds like you're very organized now and self-disciplined with your routine.
I try to be, because I know that's what makes me feel good. So I want to stay in that place, because like I can share this with you. I have not a contract, but I have a written agreement with myself. These are the behaviors and habits that make me feel good, make me a better person. These are the behaviors and habits which would lead me down that road of anxiety and depression. And it's like, this feels really good, and the discipline pays off.
Yeah.
If I fall back into this, I need to get professional help. I don't think I ever will, because I work too hard on myself now, to be honest. But these behaviors lead me to being better as a person, feel good about myself. And these behaviors I can slip back into, which will pull me this way. And that's like a written agreement that I have with myself. I mean, it's different for everyone else, but I keep that in my wallet. I just look at it every day. Okay, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's great. Just got a final 2 questions until we finish with our rapid fire segment. The first one I want to ask you is, what does the word happiness mean to you now?
That's a really profound question. I would say, from a spiritual perspective, happiness is being one with life rather than against it. So don't be so rigid. Don't be so fixed on the way you want reality to be. Accept reality for what it is, and be. So a very common spiritual teaching or mindfulness teaching is living in the present moment as much as you can, which is one thing I prioritize now, and being one with that. So you accept the moment and be in tune with the way things are, and you feel so much better. And follow your truth, you know. Don't go down the rabbit hole of other people's expectations of what, you know, how to impress others, because if you impress others, you don't help yourself. So I don't look to impress other people anymore. I used to. That was another behavior that led me to being really unhappy previously. I do the things that makes me feel good and what I feel is like in line with my moral compass. So being aligned with the present moment and being more present, dwelling in the now, or whatever you want to call it, and being aligned with your truth. That's what I'd say happiness is.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well, that happiness comes intrinsically and not from all the materialistic things. I discovered that the hard way.
Yeah. But it's fine.
Yeah, great. And the final question I want to ask you is, what does the word success mean to you?
So a couple of years ago, I thought it was the material things.
Yeah.
You know, the car, the house, everything else I described previously, and I mentioned on my Instagram post. Success to me now is achieving what's how can I say this to the best of my ability? Achieving what your core values are of your true self. So my core values of my true self are now to take care of myself, to hopefully in the long term be a pillar in the community and help others with mental health problems. So that's my core values, and I would say to help and inspire others. And if I get, you know, a big success through the mindfulness in the future or the personal training as a consequence of that, great. If not, that's fine. But following your core values and helping others, and then making sure you have a sustainable income so you can have a comfortable lifestyle. To me, that's success. And that leaving that legacy behind.
Yeah, I think you have a really good perspective on that. That's really interesting hearing that from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. No, thank you. It's been a great interview. Thank you.
Yeah, we're just moving on to the final segment, but thank you.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So far,
I've got plenty of time.
Yeah, we've learned so much listening to you just now. I can't wait until we put this video out and everyone gets to listen and watch it as well.
I think it's very beneficial for everybody listening. Thank you.
I'm trying to be as honest and transparent as I can be, because that's what helps, rather than creating some false image of myself.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, so rapid fire questions. We've got 15 of them. Just the first thing that comes to your head when I'm about to say this. So end on something a bit fun. Are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
So if you could meet anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Gosh. Dead or alive. There's so many. I'll name a few.
Okay.
Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And maybe the Dalai Lama.
Nice. Favorite cuisine?
Oh. Right now, probably sushi.
Sushi. The best advice you have received?
Gosh.
Hard questions.
The advice that I gave myself probably is be true to yourself.
Yeah. And the proudest moment of your life?
I would say overcoming my mental health problems, conquering myself, and overcoming my difficulties and being in a much better place. That's my greatest achievement.
Yeah. Summer or winter?
Both. I like both.
Fair enough. Night in or night out?
These days, probably night in. I'm getting a bit older and I appreciate the simple things.
Yeah. Food or sleep?
Food.
Favorite dessert?
Cheesecake.
Cardio or weights?
Weights.
Dumbbell press or bench press?
Dumbbell press these days. I'm not ego lifting anymore.
Chest or biceps?
Probably chest. Not that bothered about arm training. I do it, but it's just like whatever.
Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson?
I think they're both great people. Mike Tyson's overcome his mental health problems now, which I have a lot of admiration for, but Muhammad Ali, because what he stood for.
Yeah.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali, I would say.
Rugby or boxing?
These days, boxing.
Boxing.
And I love combat sports.
Yeah. Are you a football fan?
No.
No. Okay. I was gonna ask you who's winning the Euros.
I wouldn't even know.
More of a boxing and rugby guy then.
Yeah, boxing, self-defense. Obviously, I do the martial arts now. That's what I'm interested in. So.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's been great.
That's all right.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Hopefully, this helps somebody, right?
Yeah.
The leaving statement I leave to people is like, even if you're struggling right now, there's hope and there's light at the end of the tunnel. So don't give up.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, and you've given some
Thank you.
advice.
Well, I hope that helped someone, and hopefully I helped you guys. And thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. Thanks everyone for watching. We will see you on the next episode. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you later.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Brilliant. Thank you.